Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron. Welcome back today to another video. It is the game review. Everton 3, Newcastle United 0 at Goodison Park last night. A truly fantastic evening at Goodison for all of us, for the players, for the manager, and certainly for the 40,000 Evertonians that were in attendance. I said it yesterday doing the instant match reaction. I'll say it again now. That, for me, is one of the best experiences I've had at Goodison Park for a number of years. I know, we beat Bournemouth 3-0 earlier on in the season. I know we beat Burnley 3-0 in the Cup, but something about yesterday just felt different, whether it was because we were coming up against the side that, there's a little bit of animosity towards. I don't want to say there's a rivalry because I don't think there can be a rivalry between Everton and Newcastle. Everton are a far bigger club, always have been and will likely always will be. But there's definitely some form of confrontation between both sets of fans and both clubs over the last few years or so. Probably fueled by the fact that we've got Jordan Pickford in goal, who they absolutely despise. They obviously have got Anthony Gordon, who vice versa. Whatever the reasoning may be, there's definitely something there that means this game of football is automatically a little bit more important every year than maybe your average game against your average side. I don't know whether it was because of that. I don't know whether it was because Everton was so good last night. I don't know whether it was because we climbed ourselves out of the relegation zone. I'm not quite sure why I feel the way I feel, but it just felt special last night. It felt like one of those nights under the lights at Goodison that we will all remember for the rest of our lives. Goodison Park will not be here for a long time. Within the next 24 months or so, it's highly likely that Goodison Park will not exist, and obviously Everton will have moved in to the new stadium. And as good as that is for the football club, as good as that is for the future of the football club, and ultimately the progression of the football club, it is important that we understand and we appreciate just how special Goodison Park is, just how magnificent and just how magical the old lady is. And nights like last night, I think, remind us all of just how special that place is to our hearts, and just how many fantastic memories we've had over the years. And that last night will stick in our minds for the rest of our lives as a core, brilliant memory at Goodison Park. And when we move out and we move into the new stadium, and we're reminiscing and we're talking and we're sitting in the pub and we're talking to our friends and family about our favourite Everton games and results, I really do think last night's will come into the conversation, because it was absolutely phenomenal from the first minute to the last minute. It wasn't by any sense of the imagination the most comfortable game of football I've ever watched. It wasn't the easiest win Everton have had. Newcastle did have a couple of big opportunities that maybe on another day they'd have done better with, as did Everton, to be fair. Everton could have gone in 3 or 4-0 up at half time, very similarly to the Manchester United game. But just the way in which we pulled together, we fought, we battled, we stayed together. And then it's not often as an Evertonian we've seen our side battle in a game, work hard, fight, miss a few chances, get to the 75th minute or whatever it is at 0-0, and then end the game winning 3-0 relatively comfortably. Usually when we get a goal, it's sitting back, it's defending, it's worrying about whether or not the opposition are going to get an equaliser. That wasn't the case yesterday. We went and we got the second, and that feeling when Doucouré put that ball in the back of the net to make it 2-0, that sheer relief, that weight off of the shoulder, was something that, as I said, I've not felt at this football club for a long time, and it was absolutely unbelievable, and it allowed us to enjoy that last 10-15 minutes of the game. And despite the best efforts of the refereeing team and the Premier League to add as much time on as possible to try and fuel a Newcastle comeback, it ended up with Everton only going and extending their lead, didn't it? And maybe they should have added 20 minutes on and we might have won 4 or 5-0, and we'd have been able to sit here and talk for an extra half an hour about the game. But no, it was a fantastic evening As I said, I'm sure you will have all seen my instant match reaction and player ratings yesterday. Huge smile on my face. Didn't get to sleep till gone 1 o'clock in the morning. Woke up at 1:30 in the morning. Woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I find it really difficult to get my head down and switch off after such an adrenaline rush, such an excitement. We were sitting here doing the videos till 11:30 at night. So how anybody just got into bed and fell straight to sleep is beyond me. I was up for all hours because of the excitement and, as I said, the adrenaline of it. But yeah, it was a really important win for a number of reasons. Obviously the last time we played at Goodison Park, we were defeated by Manchester United in a game that didn't probably the scoreline didn't actually tell the full story of what the game of football was. Everton had plenty of opportunities in the first half of that game, and again could have got in 2-3 4-0 up. We didn't take them, we missed them, and ultimately, they obviously scored the worldie, they scored a penalty, and then they scored a goal on the attack, and we lost the game. And when we spoke about that Manchester United game, a lot of the conversation was directed towards how our home form this season has been very indicative of that game of football. Missed opportunities, playing well, working hard, but not taking our chances, and then ultimately making mistakes or ultimately conceding silly goals that are losing us games of football, be it Fulham, be it Wolves, be it, Luton, be it Manchester United. At half time yesterday, when Dominic Calvert-Lewin has missed a couple of opportunities, the volley in front of the goalkeeper is a really poor chance, it has to be said. McNeil's missed one. We've had 2 or 3 or 4 big chances to go ahead in the game, and it's ended 0-0 at half time. There was a part of me that was looking and thinking, is this going to go the way that we've seen so many of these games at Goodison go, previously this season, where we don't take our chances and they hit us on the break and walk away with an undeserved win? But thankfully for us, it didn't. And we spoke about how we needed, before the game, we spoke about how we needed to find a way to replicate not only the results away from home, but also the feeling away from home. I felt that whenever Everton have gone away this season, there's not only been a lot of confidence and a lot of conviction in the way in which we've performed and the wins that we've got, but there's also seemed to be an air of calmness and coolness and collectiveness around the place. The players, the manager, the fans, every single time pretty much we played away from home this season, it's felt like the players know what they're doing, the manager knows how to win the game, and the fans are comfortable with the manager's system and the way in which the players are playing it. There doesn't ever really seem to be an air of anxiety or worry or panic or anything like that away from home, whereas at Goodison, it's been the opposite at times this season. We've panicked at chances, we've not taken our opportunities, the pressure's grown, the anxiety is shown. As I said, in that Manchester United game, the final 20 minutes, the players looked like the pressure was just absolutely getting on top of them. So to see us turn around last night and, at half time, even though we'd missed a plethora of opportunities to go ahead, even though we should have been winning the game, we didn't allow that pressure to climb on top of us. We didn't crumble under it. We didn't allow the anxiety and the worry to seep in. We just got our heads down and we went again. And that will do so much for the confidence of these players. And as I keep saying, yes, Everton's home form is nowhere near as good as our away form. Yes, Everton's home form needs to improve generally. Yes, Everton have had a number of games this season, as we've just mentioned, the Goodison, where we should have done better than what we have. But it is by no means absolutely terrible. We've beaten Bournemouth comfortably at Goodison. We've beaten Burnley comfortably at Goodison. We should have beaten Brighton. We were unfortunate to walk away with only a point in that game. Yes, we lost to Manchester United. That will happen. We will lose games of football. We will be unfortunate in games of football. We will miss opportunities and ultimately come to rue them. And then we've just beaten Newcastle so comfortably as well. So actually, post sort of, what are we in now? December. Post-October, our home form has been pretty solid. Other than that Manchester United game, we've been pretty solid away from home. 3 wins and 1 draw. Obviously, one of those wins coming in the cup, it has to be said. But 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat at Goodison over the last 2 months or so isn't by any sense of the imagination absolutely terrible. But there was still that sort of thing of, well, we're not quite as good at home as we are at Goodison. We're not quite as consistent at home. As we are away. We're not quite as consistent at home as we are away. And last night felt like a huge step in the right direction for the confidence of these players and for the belief from the 40,000 Evertonians that these players can turn up at Goodison Park against decent sides and wipe the floor with them. Because that's exactly what we did last night. Newcastle were absolutely terrible. And, Newcastle have been brilliant over the last couple of years, and Eddie Howe's done a magnificent job. They're in the Champions League. They're still in a race for top four this season, despite being in the Champions League as well. And they deserve a huge amount of credit for that, because in my opinion, they are a team made up mostly of bang average footballers. Yes, they've got one or two stars in there. Yes, they've got one or two players in there that, obviously are have got quality and can drag them through. But last night they were horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But it was down to Everton to pick that poor team apart and go and get the 3 points, and that's exactly what we did. And we did it without our strongest side as well. I mean, a lot of Newcastle fans coming with the excuse of, oh, well, you only beat us because we've got 10 players out. I find it interesting that there's this belief that Newcastle have got 10 players out injured when really 8 of their starting 11 last night would be their starting 11 if they had everybody fit. Isaac plays every week, regardless of who's fit and who isn't fit, as does Bruno Gomes, as does Joe Linton, as does Anthony Gordon, as does Kieran Trippier, as does Fabian Schär, as does Almiron most weeks. So it wasn't it was a weakened Newcastle side, of course it was, because they've got injuries like everybody else has, but it was a weakened Everton side. Arguably our best player of recent months was out last night with an illness. Amadou Onana, somebody who's been, massively impressive in recent weeks and months, out injured still. So let's not peddle the narrative that it was Everton's strongest team versus Newcastle's third team, because it wasn't at all. It wasn't at all. And one thing I do just want to say before we get into this review, because I want this review to be positive, I want it to be high energy, I want it to be exciting, because, as I said, we don't get many nights like last night, and we haven't had many nights like last night in recent years at Goodison, and I dare say we won't get many more, because obviously, we're so close to moving into the new stadium now. But I do just want to touch on this before we go back into talking about the game, because I think it's really important. It was brought to me attention late last night after I'd done the video, so I couldn't mention it last night. It was brought to my attention that Sky Sports decided to send one of their reporters to the Whittle over the water to do a report on yesterday's game, because they deemed the protests made by Evertonians, which, by the way, were absolutely brilliant again last night, but were nothing of any violent or any physical approach. It was, 40,000 Evertonians booing, using their voices, singing against the Premier League and holding cards up. It was never anything more than that. It was never anything violent or of the sort, and it never would be that. But the Sky Sports reporter was over the water because they wanted to avoid any trouble. Firstly, that is beyond disgusting from Sky Sports News. Beyond disgusting, because what that is doing, if you don't know and you don't realise what's going on there, and maybe you're just looking at it thinking, oh, whatever, it is what it is. What that is doing is peddling a narrative. Don't come to Goodison Park. It's unsafe. It's this, it's that, it's the other. By the way, Sky are a channel that frequently send news reporters to war zones. And, if there's ever a conflict in the world or a war in the world, I can guarantee you that on Sky News, they've got a reporter there with one of those vests on with press and a big, soldier's helmet with press written on it, etc., etc., etc. So tell me why a company and a channel can send reporters to war zones where there is a genuine threat to their lives because of what's going on around those areas, but they fear going to a game of football at Goodison Park because the fans of that football club are protesting against an organisation that they, Sky, deem themselves to only have a professional relationship with. Doesn't make any sense, does it? What it actually is in reality is Sky Sports trying to peddle the narrative that don't go to Goodison Park, it's dangerous, you might be harmed, it's this, it's that, it's the other, it's a dangerous place to be. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And it's not only is it disgusting, but it's misleading and it's mischievous, and it's the media in this country doing what they do best and creating a situation and making something up to try and peddle a narrative. There have been so many people that weren't Evertonians last night, watching that would have thought, fucking hell, I don't want to go to Goodison again this year. And I know we say in the videos, oh, away fans won't want to come to Goodison, they'll dread it, they won't be happy, but we're talking about it in a footballing sense. We're talking about how away fans won't want to come to Goodison because the atmosphere will be booming and the players will be up for it and their team will likely fall short because of that, a little bit like Newcastle did yesterday. We're not talking about fans not wanting to come to Goodison because they're going to be attacked or they're going to be assaulted or anything like that. But the way Sky Sports have peddled it is trying to create that narrative. Don't go to Goodison Park because it's dangerous. We're not there because it's dangerous. That is vile. Absolutely vile. And quite frankly, if I'm Everton Football Club now, we've just seen Manchester United do this over the last 7 days. If I'm Everton Football Club now, I'm saying to Sky, you're done. You're not getting in the stadium. You're not getting in Finch Farm. You are banned from every press conference, from every interview. You're not getting in because you are trying to paint a picture that isn't correct here. And it's vile. It's absolutely vile. And we all know Sky work in association with the Premier League. It's not a coincidence that Sky Sports avoided showing the banner, that flew over the Etihad last weekend, avoided really paying any attention to the protests, and then less than 7 days later paid hundreds of millions of pounds for the rights to the Premier League. That's no coincidence. The Premier League and Sky is very much a you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours relationship. And they are as big of a culprit as the Premier League is. What's even worse about this situation is the Sky reporter that said in his own words, we are over here on the Whittle because we want to avoid any conflict or whatever it was, we want to avoid any drama or whatever the word he said was. He then was at Goodison Park and tweeting a picture of the pitch from the stands with the quote, something along the lines of going to miss Goodison Park because it's one of the best stadiums in the country when it's loud like this, etc, etc, etc. So, hang on, 3 hours ago, you're telling us that you're on the Whittle. Not only are you not safe to come to Goodison, apparently, you're not safe to even come to the city of Liverpool. You're on the Whittle because you want to avoid any violence or conflict, whatever the word it was. I don't think it was violence. It was something like avoid any trouble. But then when the cameras go off, you end up going to the game anyway. So you're not that scared, are you? You're not that scared. You're not that worried. You're not that fearful for your health. Because actually, you've just gone to Goodison anyway, which proves that the only reason you've said that is to try and create a narrative against Evertonians. We're the bad guys. You can punish the fans because look at them. You can't even go to Goodison because this'll happen, that'll happen. Nonsense. I've got no time for Sky. Absolutely no time for Sky. No time for the Premier League. I think they're both in bed with each other and they're both as bad as each other. Anyway, let's put that to one side. I wanted to say that because, you know me, I have to have me 50 pence worth on every subject, and that was something that really, really wound me up. Anyway, back to the game, which was a wonderful game, and I've got no doubt that Sky Sports were absolutely fuming last night that their darlings didn't win, and that the team that is protesting against their best friends is come out victorious. So I've got no doubt that Sky were fuming and the Premier League were fuming last night. Of course they were, but as I said, we went into this game with a weakened squad as well. We went into it with Ashley Young playing in midfield, which is a position that he's not played so far for Everton, although I thought he was absolutely brilliant last night. Seamus Coleman returned to the starting lineup, as did Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Obviously, Beto not great against Nottingham Forest. Dom returned to fitness, and as I said a week ago, when Dominic Calvert-Lewin is fit and available, Dominic Calvert-Lewin will play because he's our number one striker, and that's just the way that it is. And I thought Everton started the game really, really positively. What was different to the game against Manchester United last week? Well, firstly, was that Newcastle didn't score in the opening 2 minutes of the game. I still stick with my point that had Manchester United not scored that early on and the goal, that good and it was an absolute worldie, wasn't it? And it completely took the wind out of our sails. If that would not have happened, I think Everton would have gone on to beat Manchester United, and I think Everton would have gone on to beat Manchester United comfortably. That didn't happen last night. There was no worldie, there was no wonder goal, and we were straight at it from the off. We were straight out the traps. We were battling. We were running with people. We were fighting. It was an even half football, I would say. Up until the sort of 20-minute mark, I think it was an even start. We had the better chances in the game. They still had a couple of big chances. Isaac had a free header. That he maybe should have done a little bit better with. But we had the much better chances in that first half. And as I said, it was one of those where you're sort of sitting there at half time thinking, have we just witnessed another case of Everton not taking our opportunities, missing chances we should be scoring, and ultimately that's going to come back and bite us on the arse now. And it wasn't. It wasn't to be. The second half, we stepped it up, we put our foot on the gas, and we were much, much better. But as I said, you can't fault the efforts from the players in the first half. You can't fault the determination. You can't fault their ability to pick themselves up and go again. Not miss an opportunity and then drop their heads and think, oh, well, what's the point anymore because I've not scored that one. They pick themselves up, they go, and they go again. The protests from the fans were absolutely fantastic. Once again, this time it was green cards being held up in protest to the Premier League. Obviously, the whole park end. The park end was the only stand that received these green cards, I believe. I was in the park end. I had one myself. Because of some issues with timing and not being able to get enough of them printed out in time for the game. But the whole park end was covered in green cards. They obviously were held up during the Premier League anthem, which was booed hugely. I don't know whether or not that was shown on television, probably not. And then they were held up on the 10th minute as well. And it helped create that sort of hostile atmosphere. And to be fair to the Newcastle fans, they fueled it as well. They weren't unbelievable last night, I don't think. I think they were very much of the spoiled brat sort of atmosphere of, watch this, we don't lose games, how come we're losing? But at the start of the game, before the ball had been kicked, when they obviously were very confident that they were going to win the game, they fueled the atmosphere by mocking the Premier League protests, by trying to get under our skin as they do every single year, and that further fueled the crowd then to stand up. Another thing that massively fueled the crowd was Anthony Gordon being on the pitch. I think Eddie Howe is a very good manager. As I said before, I think he's done wonders with what is, for me, a bang average Newcastle team with a couple of good players in there. One massive mistake he made last night was starting Anthony Gordon. When you look back to 12 months ago, and this is the biggest thing I took from this game, is how different of a result and how different of a performance this was from the one 12 months ago when Newcastle turned up and wiped the floor with us relatively comfortably at Goodison Park. They won, 4-1 on that day, something like that. One thing that was so glaringly different was obviously not only the way in which Everton performed, but the way in which Everton dealt with certain players that were relatively comfortable on that day, or more than comfortable on that day a year ago. Players like Isaac, who was running the show a year ago and couldn't get anywhere near the ball yesterday because Jared Brandtwaite was absolutely everywhere. Bruno Gomes, who was really active this time last year, absolutely terrible yesterday. Joe Linton, I don't think, touched the ball more than 5 times. So there was quite an obvious difference between the performance a year ago and the performance last night, and that was absolutely fantastic to see. But as I said, the decision by Eddie Howe to start Anthony Gordon was one that I'll never understand. Never, ever, ever understand, because it gave us as Evertonians a reason to create an atmosphere. Every time he got the ball, we were booing, we were screaming. That then fed onto the pitch, and you could tell that it fed onto the pitch because every time he had the ball, he was chased down instantly, whether it be by Ashley Young, whether it be by Jack Addison, whether it be by Dwight McNeil. Every single time he got the ball, it was like those Everton players saw it as an opportunity to rile the crowd up, saw it as an opportunity to further build that atmosphere. And these players aren't stupid, by the way. These players know full well that the louder the crowd is, the better the atmosphere, the more intense it is, the more likely we are to come away with a result, the more pressure adds to the opposition team, and the more, as I said, the more likely we are to win the game. So they know anything they can do to enhance the crowd, to get the crowd on their feet, to get the crowd screaming and shouting, they will do. And to have Anthony Gordon there was almost like a free hit. He was like he was like a salmon in a pool full of piranhas, wasn't he, last night? In the sense that every time he touched the ball or he had the ball, everybody wanted to get over to him, and every one of the fans wanted him to be, put on his arse, and he was often. He didn't start the game this time last year. He come off the bench when they were comfortably winning, and he got his moment to smile and laugh and this, that, and the other. Well, he wasn't laughing yesterday, was he? He rather embarrassed himself, and I hope he plays against Everton every single year, by the way. And this isn't just an Anthony Gordon thing. We've saw this with many players over the years. We've saw it with Wayne Rooney over the years. Sir Alex Ferguson openly said to Wayne Rooney, "You're not playing in this game ever again," because he just couldn't handle it, and the crowd was so on his back and so up against him that it ended up benefiting Everton. It's happened with Ross Barkley. It's happened with Romelu Lukaku. If you leave Everton Football Club, in a bad light, and you are not liked by the fans, it's absolutely pointless you playing against Everton at Goodison, because you're not going to have a good game. Wayne Rooney is the best player to ever come out of this country. The best footballer this country has ever produced, without a shadow of a doubt. And I can count on one hand how many good performances he had against Everton at Goodison after leaving the football club to join Manchester United, and he was there for 10 years, 12 years, and I can count on one hand how many good performances he had at Goodison, and he recognises this himself, as does Sir Alex Ferguson, arguably the best manager ever. He couldn't deal with the pressure, and Anthony Gordon couldn't yesterday. And as I said, it was massively beneficial to us. I was made up when I seen him on the team sheet, because I knew it would rile the crowd up, and it would build that atmosphere. And it did, and as I said, I thought we were really, really strong in that first half. I thought we were really, really strong. We were creating opportunities, we were getting forward, we were putting them on the back foot, and we were showing that when you apply pressure, and when you battle, and when you fight, and when you work hard, and when you, when you push, and when you work harder than the opposition, in most cases, you will come away with a result. I said in the instant match reaction, I think it was, or it might have been the player ratings, but whatever video it was last night, I said, I honestly think you could have put any side in front of Everton last night at Goodison Park, and we would have beaten them. Because the work rate, the determination, the desire, the commitment, everything was there from those players, everything. And the fans react to that. We are now in quite a unique situation. Now, don't get me wrong, I will never, ever, ever sit here and try and glorify or try and put a positive spin on Everton being deducted 10 points, because there is no positive to take from it whatsoever. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody tries to say about, it's galvanising, this, that and the other. The reality of the situation is Everton deserve to be and should be sitting 10th in the Premier League now on 20 points, which would be 11 points above Luton, who sit in the relegation zone. 11 points. Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United aren't making 11 points on Everton this season. Therefore, we would be safe already in December, and we would be looking up the table. We'd be sitting 10th thinking, do you know what? We're 4 points away from West Ham here. We're only 6 points away from Newcastle themselves, who sit in 7th in a fight for Europe. We're looking up the table all of a sudden. So there's no positive on having a points deduction. There's no, it might be a good thing because they'll stay up anyway. But what it is a very unique situation. If you haven't already, by the way, please do subscribe. We're literally a couple of subscribers away from 8,500 subscribers. If you could hit that, that would be unbelievable. We're aiming to get towards 9,000 subscribers over the next couple of months, which would be great. And then obviously onto the 10k, which is the big goal. And my dream when I created this channel was to hit 10,000 subscribers. So if we could do that, it would be amazing. But what it is a very unique situation. And why it is unique is because for the first time in a long, long time, everybody at this football club now is pushing in the same direction. And everybody at this football club is fighting for the same thing. There's no sort of feeling of, well, they're against us, or they don't know what they're doing, or they shouldn't be here, or they are trying to do something purposely in order to affect the football club. There's none of that anymore. The board of the club are an interim board who, A, are not the same incident board that put us in the shit over the last few years, and B, will likely be replaced over the next couple of months anyway, if the takeover is announced. When the takeover is announced, who knows? The players, obviously, we all know, are not at fault for this situation that we're in whatsoever. These Everton players deserve to be sat 10th in the Premier League looking up towards a European fight, which is massive considering where we've been for the last 2 years, and considering the majority of this squad is the same as what it was for certainly last year. Some obviously for the year before as well. The manager isn't to blame. Sean Dyche is proven me hugely wrong over the course of the last few months, and I'm willing to sit here and hold my hands up and say I was massively wrong about this manager. He has turned this around drastically, and he's now got an unprecedented situation that, you know, not many managers have faced in their time, and he's managed to begin turning that around as well. It took us less than 2 weeks to get out of the relegation battle after being to get out of the relegation zone. After being deducted 10 points. He deserves a huge amount of credit, and he deserves to be in a fight for Europe, as do these players. The fans understand that. So the situation is unique because now we are in a position where if we lose a game, it's not the end of the world. We understand that sometimes we lose a game because we're not good enough, or we don't take our chances, or we're not, we're players have an off day, etc., etc. But I think what last night shown is that these players, to a man, all want to play for this football club. They all want to win for this football club. They all want to improve this football club, and they all want to drag us out of this position. Now, it's one thing players wanting to drag us out of a position that they've put themselves in through bad performances and through not winning games. That's one thing, because we all sit here as fans and say, well, yeah, you should want to drag yourself out of that position because you put yourself in it. It's very, very different when they haven't put themselves in that position and they've been put in it through no fault of their own. And as I said yesterday, whether you agree with the points deduction, whether you're one of these clueless opposition fans who says, Everton cheated, so you deserve what you get, etc., 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 whether you think it's harsh, whether you think it's a corrupt disgrace like I do, or whether you think it's fair, one thing that everybody would agree on, and I mean everybody, is that it isn't the fault of the players or the manager. Neither of those two groups, management team and players, have put Everton in this situation, and neither of the fans. Everton are in this situation because of a situation. Everton in this situation because of a situation. Everton in this situation because of a points deduction that, let's be honest, is a load of bollocks. But for those players to still want to pick themselves up and drag us out of that position, despite the fact that they're not at fault, just shows how good of a group we actually have. And I think that is a incredibly unique and blessed situation for us to be in, because now we feel like a family again. Everton Football Club feels like what it felt like to me when I fell in love with this football club. I didn't fall in love with Everton over the last 2 years. I fell in love with Everton 20 years ago when I was a little kid going to Goodison, and every game, every win felt like it did yesterday. It felt like everybody was together. Everybody at the football club was together. It was an us versus everyone mentality, and we all were in it together. Had I have been an Evertonian growing up over the last 2 years, I'm not quite sure I'd have that relationship with Everton that I've got now. Because we were so disjointed, we were all over the place, there was so much negativity, there was so much conflict at the football club, from the owners to the board members to the staff to the management to the players. Everything was all over the place. I'm not quite sure, had I have just randomly wanted to get into football 2 years ago, I'm not quite sure I'd still be here now, because I'd probably have looked at it and gone, do you know what? This is a bit all over the gaff, isn't it? But we are here because, the majority of us didn't fall in love with Everton 2 years ago. We fell in love with Everton 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And how good does it feel now to finally be in a situation where we can say, do you know what? We feel like a family again. It feels like everybody is against. It feels like it's us versus everybody. and last night was the epitome of that. As I said, the chances we missed in the first half were worrying, to say the least. They were worrying. It felt at times like it was going to be another one of those evenings where we rue the opportunities. Dom had a couple of big chances, one header. Obviously, at the back post, I think the ball was kept in brilliantly by Dwight McNeil, and he swings the ball in, and unfortunately, just doesn't get enough pace on it to create the power for Dominic Calvert-Lewin's header. Dom heads it, and it ultimately ends up being a fairly comfortable save for Dubravka. He had the one along the floor when he was slipped in, and again, he just couldn't get the right connection on it to put it across goal. It did cause a problem for Dubravka, who made the save, but then ultimately had to scramble to pick the ball back up. But again, it was never going to cause any big issue. And then the third one is the big opportunity that, ultimately, had we have not won this game, we'd all be sitting here and highlighting this and talking about it for 15-20 minutes about how poor it is. I'm not going to do that because Everton have ultimately gone on and won the game, and the actual miss in itself and the actual situation doesn't mean anywhere near as much now as what it would have done had we have not won the game. But it has to be said, he should be doing better. And that's fine for us to say, by the way. It's fine for us to sit here after a brilliant win, after a great night, and say, do you know what? He should be doing better in that situation, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because he should be. He's a Premier League centre-forward who's got the ball 6 yards away from goal, hitting it on the volley. He leans back, he rushes, it's rash, and he blasts it over the bar. And I just remember looking at my dad thinking, if that hasn't gone in, then what is going to go in today for us? What's going to hit the back of the net if that hasn't? And we had other opportunities in that first half. McNeil had one that if he takes it first time, he's probably got a better chance, but he doesn't. He takes a touch and then it goes wide. We had another couple of half opportunities that, were put over the bar. Branthwaite had a header, which I think he should have done a little bit better with. He just jumps a bit earlier. But regardless of all of that, I've spoke a lot this season about how every time we miss a chance at Goodison, the pressure is increased hugely. So if we're at Goodison and Dom misses an opportunity, then the next time somebody else has an opportunity, whether it be Dom, whether it be McNeil, whether it be Garner Gay, the pressure is almost doubled for that second opportunity because we've already missed one. So the expectation now is you can't miss two big chances. You then miss the second big chance, and then the third big chance, the pressure is doubled again. We've missed two big chances. How many of these are we going to miss before we put one in the back of the net? And I do think Everton have struggled this season in dealing with that pressure and in dealing with that expectation that when you create clear chances, you should be putting them in the back of the net. You've done all the hard work. The easy part is to put it in the back of the net. And there is a pressure that is created when you miss 3 or 4 big opportunities in one half of football. Of course there is. Because anxiety starts to set in amongst the fan base. Fear starts to set in amongst the fan base. And I don't think Everton have done brilliantly at times this season at dealing with that. However, yesterday, they dealt with it perfectly. Newcastle, as I said, they had a couple of chances in the first half, couple of half opportunities. Jordan Pickford didn't really have to do anything in the game, to be fair. But, Isaac said if that goes in, then maybe it's a different situation, maybe it's a different game and a different conversation. But it doesn't. He puts it wide. As I said, we had 3 or 4 chances that, were absolute golden in that first half. And we go in at half time and you're thinking, right, well, the only thing to do now is to come out and do exactly what we've been doing, but better. And we spoke about how we improved at half time against Forest last weekend, at how the first half was good, but not great. We were in control at times, but we weren't necessarily active. We weren't doing an awful lot with the ball. We weren't doing an awful lot when we had possession. And we come out in the second half of that Forest game and we completely changed. We were much better. We were much quicker. James Garner was absolutely everywhere, winning the ball back. The interceptions were there. We were a much better team in that second half on Saturday than we were in the first half. It was imperative that we did that again last night. It was imperative that last night we come out and we improved. We didn't stay the same. We didn't worry, we didn't panic, we didn't let the pressure pile up on us. We improved on what we were in the first half, and we put a solid performance in the first half. As I said, should we have scored goals? Absolutely, yeah. We should have been 2 or 3-0 up comfortably, but we weren't. So you've got to deal with that, and you've got to ultimately move on from it. And I thought in the second half we were again outstanding. There was a period of 10 or 15 minutes before we scored where we looked a little bit like it was almost, how are we going to break through these? How are we going to, how are we going to win this game? We went a long ball a couple of times. It felt a little bit like the ideas were running out. But that can happen. When you've played football for 70 minutes and you've created a load of opportunities and you've not scored, and the opposition team aren't particularly doing much in the game, naturally you can get the feeling of, how do we reassess this with 20 minutes to go, change it up, and go and win this game? And thankfully, we were presented with a huge opportunity to go and do that. Before that, by the way, I just wanna pick out a couple of players. Ashley Young yesterday, absolutely phenomenal. I picked them out in me instant match reaction. Somebody that I've criticised hugely this season. Somebody that I've criticised, as I said, and I've spoken about when he's performed poorly and when he's made mistakes and when he's given goals away. And I've always been very open on this channel. I've done this channel for 5 years, and I've always been very open. If I don't think a player's performed well, I will call them out. If I think a player's performed well, I will give them credit. Ashley Young was absolutely unbelievable last night. He really, really was. And the pinnacle of it was when we were 2-0 up. The game was basically over, let's be honest. Newcastle weren't getting back in the game at that point. And Dubravka had the ball at his feet. And Ashley Young ran 40, 50 yards to put pressure on the goalkeeper in that situation. Not, because we were losing and we needed to get a goal, not because we were poor, or it was 0-0 and we were trying to push for the winner. No, we were 2-0 up at that game. He could have quite easily gone, do you know what, I'm just going to sit back, I'm not going to waste my energy, I'm not going to risk getting an injury, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to stay calm. But he didn't. He chased the ball down, and that effort and that work rate is what we want to see from these players. I say this constantly. As Evertonians, we don't expect to win every week. We don't expect these players to turn up and put Barcelona-esque performances in every time they step on that pitch and win every game 4 or 5-0. And if they don't, we're leaving the stadium fuming. We don't expect that. But what we expect is a bare minimum, and this is something that Sean Dyche deserves the world of credit for, because this is something that he has ensured happens, is that every one of those players walks off that pitch at the end of the game not being able to give anything else, because they've given absolutely everything. They've battled, they've worked, they've fought their arse off, they've ran their arse off, they've given everything they possibly can to win that game of football. Sometimes we won't win, and we'll sit there and we'll say, do you know what, it was one of those afternoons, it is what it is. Sometimes we will win, but the bare minimum is that work rate, is that effort, is that desire, is that determination. And that moment from Ashley Young, for me, defines exactly what it means to be an Everton player. 2-0 up, 10 minutes to go, game's over. However, still giving it 110%, still pushing, still battling, still not being satisfied with what the scoreline is or what the situation is. And Ashley Young deserves a huge, huge amount of credit for his performance last night. Not only that, his overall performance was very, very solid. It was the best game he's had in an Everton shirt ever, in my opinion. It was the best game he's ever had in an Everton shirt. He was absolutely brilliant last night, and he deserves a ridiculous amount of credit for that, because it's only fair that we do that. We criticise him when he plays poorly, we criticise him when he makes mistakes, we criticise him when he when he's not on it, and it's only right that we give him credit and we praise him when he does perform. And yesterday I thought he was excellent. Vitaly Mykolenko again, You know, how many of these Vitaly Mykolenko performances are we going to have before we start having a serious conversation about how good this kid is at football? You know, he was absolutely excellent again last night. Absolutely excellent. His desire, his commitment, his battle. He was all over the place. He was winning the ball back. His one-on-one defending was brilliant. He had to come up against Anthony Gordon in the end, even though Newcastle fans saying Anthony Gordon doesn't play on that side. Do your research. And he doesn't play on that side because he knows he's absolutely got no chance of getting anything from Vitaly Mykolenko. But ironically, he had no chance of getting anything from Seamus Coleman either, so we may as well have just sat and watched the match next to me. But yeah, again, unbelievable last night. Vitaly Mykolenko, absolutely unbelievable performance. Jared Brandwaite, I mean, this kid is colossal, isn't he? He is absolutely colossal. You know, again, we think back to that performance at Goodison Park 12 months ago when Newcastle turned up and were comfortable winners on that day, and it looked at that point like there was a million miles between both of these sides. And one of the key differences on that day was defensively, we were absolutely all over the place. We didn't know how to deal with Newcastle. We didn't know how to deal with Isaac. We didn't know how to deal with Bruno Gomes. You make one change to that defensive back line. You put Brandwaite in, who, by the way, I heard an interview with James Maddison yesterday, I think, might have been the day before, talking about Jude Bellingham. And he was speaking about how Jude Bellingham, the best thing about Jude Bellingham is, or something that is impressive about Jude Bellingham, is that he plays like he is a seasoned professional. He plays like a player that has played 400, 500, 600 games before in the top level, and he's just that calm and cool and collected and mature. And obviously he hasn't. He's 20 years old. He's not played a ridiculous amount of football, but he plays like he has. Jared Brandwaite is exactly the same as that for me. This is a kid who it's easy to forget that this is his first season in the Premier League. His first season in the Premier League, and he dealt with a £70 million striker yesterday as if it was nothing. He just barged them out the way. He used his strength. He used his athleticism. He was absolutely phenomenal again yesterday. Obviously we had conversations on social media about whether or not he will end up staying at Everton Football Club or whether he will move on. I don't even want to entertain those conversations at the moment because, quite frankly, in my mind, I want to see Jared Brandwaite as somebody that is at this football club for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And I refuse to see it any otherwise at the moment because he's special. Really, really is special. He is. Garner Gay, somebody I want to give a shout out to, absolutely impeccable again yesterday. 4 or 5 games on the spin that he's had to step in, or 3-4 games he's had to step in the absence of Amadou Onana, and he's been absolutely faultless in every game, every performance. He's been absolutely faultless in. Another unbelievable performance yesterday from Adissa Garnegay, absolutely everywhere, covered in every bit of grass, winning the ball back where he needed to, battling for it. Absolutely outstanding yesterday. Absolutely outstanding. Like McNeil. I mean, I told you all when we signed him, this kid has got something. Give him time, give him a chance, give him an opportunity. This kid has got something. And I actually think, technically, he's our best player. I do. I think at this football club, technically, and some people might disagree, certainly forward player, I think technically he's our best. The finish yesterday, it's so easy to just overlook it. It's so easy to just go, oh yeah, but he took the ball off Trippier, so he didn't have a lot to do. He did. He took the ball off Trippier about 15 yards away from the halfway line. So he still had to drive himself into that position on the edge of the box and rifle it into the back of the net. It wasn't an easy opportunity. It wasn't an easy chance. It wasn't something. He didn't take the ball off Trippier on the 6-yard box, did he? And it was, a comfortable position to put himself in. No, he wasn't. He took the ball off Trippier 30, 40 yards away from the goal and still drove into that area. And the shot is just impeccable. I mean, they call it the paintbrush, that left foot, I think, don't they? Fucking hell. Call it a wand. Because he is absolutely a magician. As I said, that first goal come at a brilliant time, and the players deserve a huge amount of credit for that first goal, by the way, because as I said before, we were getting to a stage in the game, I think, where we were almost thinking, what more can we do here? These are shutting up shop. They're not really giving much. They're not doing much. We're finding it hard to break through them. Players are getting a bit tired. Legs are starting to show, and it's difficult in that position then to, when an opportunity presents itself, to snatch and take it like that and not waste it and not let it go by. And that's exactly what Dwight McNeil did. The opportunity presented itself. He wins the ball back from Kieran Trippier. It was an absolutely unbelievable performance by Kieran Trippier, wasn't it? Let's be honest. It was one of his best performances I've ever seen him have. He was absolutely unbelievable for Everton yesterday. Kieran Trippier, he was fantastic. But as I said, there's still a ridiculous amount of work to do. And I keep seeing replays of the goal and people talking about the goal. Trippier this, Trippier that, Trippier the other. Trippier lost the ball 40 yards from goal with 3 or 4 Newcastle players behind him. Yes, it was a big mistake. Of course it was. I'm not saying it wasn't a big mistake. But, give credit where credit's due to Dwight McNeil, who picked that ball up, drove with it, found himself a yard of space and rifled it into the back of the net. And when that went in, obviously the crowd erupted, the stadium erupted. It was unbelievable. The atmosphere was amazing at that point. We was kissing everybody around me. It was absolutely unbelievable. But there is then an element of you that thinks, how do we now approach? We've got 15 minutes left in this game, plus we all knew there would be 10 plus minutes added on because the Premier League are dying for Newcastle to win every week with that brown envelope that they receive every single time Newcastle play. And, we were all, I think, sort of sat there thinking, well, how do we approach this final sort of 20, 25 minutes now, which is a good chunk of a game of football. There was 2 ways we could have gone about it. We could have threw a couple of centre-halves on, sat back and gone, do you know what? Let's just see this out now. No need to worry. 1-0 up. Everybody behind the ball. Let's defend with our lives and not do anything stupid. But we didn't. Yes, Newcastle had a couple of opportunities after that. We gifted Anthony Gordon a big chance. It's James Tarkowski. It was made a mistake in possession. Gifted them an opportunity that he passed straight to Pickford, which was nice of him. But we didn't sit back. We didn't throw everyone behind the ball and try to defend the 1-0 lead. We continued what we were doing, and we believe that if we continue to put pressure on them, if we continue to get at them, if we continue to, fight and work hard and battle, then more opportunities will present themselves. And it feels so nice to sit here after an Everton game where we've scored so late on. And not only have we won the game, but instead of sitting back and putting ourselves under pressure for the next 20, 25 minutes, we've just gone out and got a second goal and then gone out and got a third goal. It just feels so good. It really, really does. And as I said, the second goal, pardon me, I've got the hiccups now. I've been talking for that long. The second goal is, again, near enough a carbon copy of the first goal. But this comes from Jack Harrison this time. And I have criticised Jack Harrison recently because I don't think he's been as involved in games of football as I would like him to be. Maybe my expectation of him is too high. Maybe I'm expecting too much from him. Maybe, I should sort of appreciate him for what he is. I do think yesterday he struggled at times in the game. But, as I said in the instant match reaction, I think when we went 1-0 up, I think from that point until the end of the game, I thought he was the best player on the pitch. And all of a sudden, his energy, his determination, his desire, his passion, his fight, it all came out in that moment when we went 1-0 up. And I'm not saying he wasn't working hard or battling beforehand, because he was. He always puts a shift in, he always works hard, he always has a go. But he especially had the go when we went 1-0 up, and I think he gave that extra 5 or 10%. And the second goal is all Jack Harrison. I didn't give him enough credit yesterday in the in the instant match reaction because I was absolutely buzzing and I was made up and everything was great. But he deserves a huge amount of credit for that goal, because not only does he run 25, 30 yards to win the ball back, but he runs, he gets square with Kieran Trippier, he wins it back, He then drives past Kieran Trippier, plays a lovely ball into the box. It's missed by Dwight McNeil, and Doucouré puts it away. And that was the golden seal, wasn't it? That was the sort of the stamp on the envelope of that game being over. There was still 20-odd minutes to go at that point, and there was every chance Newcastle could have got back in the game, certainly at 1-0. Certainly at 1-0. Well, it was 86 minutes, so there was, 15 minutes to go at that point, and there was every chance that Newcastle could have got back in the game at 1-0 with 15 minutes to go. Of course there is. That goal killed the game off, and it was all Jack Harrison. It was all Jack Harrison. The finish by Dukes is brilliant, and listen, Abdoulaye Doucouré has been somebody that has been absolutely excellent since Sean Dyche has come into the football club. 5 Premier League goals for him this season, or 5 goals this season. 10, I think, since Dyche has come into the football club, more than any other player. And although I don't think he was hugely involved yesterday in terms of in the general game, he's somebody that will always step up and put the ball in the back of the net when you need him to, and he did exactly that yesterday, and you know, that's all you can ask from him, isn't it? But the goal is all Jack Harrison. It's absolutely unbelievable by Jack Harrison. It's a brilliant bit of play. It's a lovely ball across, and as I said, Doucouré deserves a massive amount of credit for putting it in the back of the net as well. And then we put the icing on the cake, don't we? A 29 pass goal. A goal that would be all over the news if it was scored by Manchester City or Liverpool, or if it was Newcastle, it would be all over the papers and all over the news. But because it was scored by Everton, it's not really being spoken about as much. 29 passes. Ole's. Ole. When was the last time we watched Everton at Goodison against the top side? Ole. 29 times and then go, do you know what? We're bored of Ole in here. We're just going to score. It was unbelievable. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that goal back. I've watched that goal at least 50, 60 times back already, and the game hasn't even been over for 15 hours, 14 hours, and I've watched that goal back 50 times at least already. It's spectacular. It's absolutely spectacular, from the passing of play, getting themselves out of sticky situations, one-touch passing and moving, to Anthony Gordon running around and Mikalenko just going, see you later, lad, better luck next time, putting him on his arse, to Patterson receiving a ball, lovely ball to Beto, and then the work that Beto has to do from that position is something that isn't being spoken about an awful lot. He runs from, again, 15 yards away from the halfway line. He runs, gets himself through on goal, bearing down on the goalkeeper, battles with the defender, keeps himself up, and slides it under the goalkeeper's legs after 29 passes. We embarrassed Newcastle last night, didn't we? We absolutely embarrassed them. That's a football club that is owned by a country that has spent hundreds of millions of pounds in the last few years. And before you say, so have Everton, no, we haven't. Everton has spent hundreds of millions of pounds years and years ago. Over the last 3 years, net spend, I think we're in the pluses. I think we've earned more money than we've spent. And we embarrassed them in that moment. 5 minutes to go at the end of the game. Everybody's knackered. We're winning the game already. And yet we're still just passing the ball around Olean. And then it did feel like the players just went, oh, fuck it, just score, put them out of misery. It was like men versus boys in that moment, and the goal is fabulous, and I couldn't be happier. I absolutely couldn't be happier for Beto, because he deserves that. He deserves that as much as anybody deserves a goal. You can't half tell how much of a confidence player he is, how he struggles when he misses opportunities, how it affects him. You can see it in the game in real time, that when he misses an opportunity, he really struggles to deal with that. That goal will do him the world of good. He's already come out on his interview after the game and said about how much confidence that will give him, how much happiness it brought to him, how buzzing he was to score, to score in front of the Gladys seat after 29 passes while we're olaying players and putting players on their arse is magical in any sense of the imagination, let alone for a new striker who's come in and found it a little bit difficult to settle in, etc, etc, etc. He deserved that massively last night. And it was a brilliant finish as well. As I said, Beto still got a ridiculous amount of work to do when he picks that ball up. It's not like he picks it up on the edge of the 6-yard box and he's only going to finish it. He runs near enough the whole length of their half to put the ball in the back of the net. It's a massive amount of work he's got to do. And he deserves a huge amount of credit for that. And as I said, the overall goal in itself, I mean, I'm going to go back and watch it another 30 times when I finish this live stream. And then I'm going to do the preview to the Chelsea game. And then I'm probably going to go back and watch it another few times as well, because why not? Why not? It was unbelievable. It was absolutely unbelievable. And yeah, it was the icing on the cake of what was, as I said at the start of the live stream, one of those nights at Goodison Park that we will never forget. One of those special nights at Goodison Park that when we talk about Goodison and we talk about Goodison under the lights and how special it is and how great it is, you think back to games like that. You know, I can think back to numerous games. Man United at home in 2013, was it? 2012, when Fellaini scored the header. Chelsea at Goodison in the quarter-final of the FA Cup to take us to Wembley when Lukaku scored. You know, there's numerous games that you can think back to under the lights at Goodison where Everton put in memorable performances that we will all remember for the rest of our lives. Yesterday was one of them. And I'm absolutely buzzing for it, and I'm absolutely buzzing about it. And yeah, I think if we play like that again against Chelsea, and we work that hard, and we battle, and we fight, I think that I think we'll win again on Sunday. I really do. And yeah, absolutely over the moon, absolutely buzzing. Huge credit to the manager. He deserves a massive amount of credit. Huge credit to the players as well. Yeah, a special night that we won't forget for a long time. So there you go. That is the game review. Let us know your thoughts on it in the comments section down below. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That would mean a huge amount to me. We will be back later on this afternoon with the Chelsea preview, so look out for that one. But until then, big thank you all for watching. Please do hit that like button up the fucking softies. And yeah, that's what we do, don't we, Everton? We just take the piss. Big thank you for watching. See you after.